Shut up and sit down.
Hello, my friend. You are listening to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast, the number one place for innovative marketing, retention strategies, and business growth ideas made just for dance studio owners. Now, this isn't your average business podcast. We're here to shake things up, simplify the hustle, and focus on real, actionable insights. I'm your host, Jen Dalton, and after 30 years of running studios, coaching owners, and scaling businesses, I know one thing's for sure. There's no one size fits all in this industry. You've got the passion, and I've got the tools to help you take it to the next level. So hit that subscribe button, grab a coffee, and let's scale your studio together. Hey, Dance fam, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Today's episode is a question that I was literally asked last week, and I figure if someone's asking, then there's someone else who might have the same question. And that was the exact place to begin for the 2026 planning. And, you know, if you listen to me, you know that I'm a real big future planner, and right now is when I start to plan. And so I thought it was really appropriate to have this conversation and start really focusing on so that I can support you in the best way possible so that you can get your next year all sorted and planned, and so you can actually enjoy the events that are the lead up to the end of this year. And so when it comes to planning for the new year, there are so many directions that you can take. And you might start with your big goals or your marketing plan or your finances, maybe even your team structure. And all of those are absolutely important. But after 30 years of running a studio and now working really closely with studio owners every day in their studios, I've realized that the one place that it makes life easier in every way is the timetable. Now, your timetable is more than just a schedule of classes. It really is the foundation of enrolments, retention, staffing, and growth, because it's all built on your timetable. And if you want to feel confident about where your studio is heading in 2026, then I would suggest that the smartest place to begin is right here. And so in today's episode, I'm going to talk about why the timetable should be your starting point for your studio planning, and what really savvy studio owners are already doing, and how you can use it as a strategic tool for growth for your studio and not just think of it as a piece of admin. And I'd also like to just say that in my mastermind right now, I would say nearly 50% of the girls who are in that mastermind already have their timetable done, and the rest are not far behind. So real shout out to each of those members of our mastermind for being on top of that, and they're really reaping the rewards of that. All right, back to today's episode. So why the timetable should come first. So if you think about it, every major decision in your studio will connect back to your timetable. So the first thing I want to highlight is your families. They want clarity. They want answers, and it's actually getting earlier and earlier each year. I don't know if you're finding that, but I know I was speaking to a studio owner a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I've already had an email about next year's timetable. And so when a parent asks, what will next year look like for my child? You can give them, I'm saying an exact answer. Now, I know it is always subject to change, and you can put your timetable together and say subject to change or subject to teachers' availability. But if you give them some sort of answer, then they are going to feel instantly reassured. And then they're less likely to shop around because their future feels secure with you. The next thing is your team. So it gives your team clarity as well. If you think about it from a teacher's point of view, it's tricky for them to plan their lives or commit to your studio without knowing what their workload looks like. And the earlier you can give them that clarity, the stronger their buy-in will be. And then your business depends on it. So your revenue, your retention, your capacity, and even your personal schedule will all stem from the way that your timetable is designed. And so this is why I say For me, it's the exact place to begin any type of planning for the new year. If you're trying to set goals or build marketing campaigns without knowing how many spots you can actually fill or whether your timetable even works for your families, then it has that feeling that you're working backwards. All right, so next thing is I want you to look at your timetable as a growth tool. Now, here's the mindset shift. Your timetable isn't just admin, it's actually part of your strategy. And when you treat it that way, you'll start to see how it directly impacts your growth. And so this includes like your enrollment patterns. So the way classes are stacked determines whether families enroll in one class or multiple classes, or how you put those classes together. How are you packaging those? The next thing is retention. When you set clear pathways from one level to the next, it will stop or reduce the drop-offs when they determine their kids have outgrown a class or they feel like their kid is ready to move up to the next level. Your timetable can show really clear pathways of how that works for their child. And of course, staff retention, which I know is a common issue at the moment, like finding teachers, having them stay on, making sure that they're really aligned in your studio. But if you have a balanced timetable that keeps teachers motivated, not burnt out or frustrated, then you're already 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And I can remember years ago when I really grasped this concept, I stopped just plugging in classes where they fit. And I started to just ask myself, okay, how can I design this timetable so it makes it easy for families to stay with us for years? And honestly, that's when my retention improved dramatically. And we saw a massive increase in revenue because people were staying. We had it so that they could drop their kids off and they would stay for multiple classes. And so I didn't actually have to double my marketing. I was just working with the timetable. All right, so looking ahead to 2026, the studio owners who will be in the strongest position, they're already anticipating things like shifts in demand. This part is going to change probably slightly each year. And, so for example, you might have a studio that is seeing really good growth in your preschool numbers, while maybe your senior numbers are plateauing. So planning now will then ensure that you've got enough space for growth where it can happen. You want to capitalize on things that are working well. The next thing is the family convenience. I always go back to this, particularly at the moment with everyone being so busy. Parents will generally not want to do 3 separate trips for 3 kids. So if you can structure your timetable so that siblings are in and out together or even within the same day, then you've just made yourself the easiest choice for a family who is looking for something that's a little bit more convenient for them. And then experience-based scheduling. So it's not just about weekly classes anymore. Rehearsals, exam, preps, intensives, or even creative weeks need to be built into the calendar. And studios that do this well, they look organized and they look forward-thinking, and parents really love that. So those savvy studio owners, they're not waiting until the end of the year to figure this out. They're already running scenarios, they're moving the pieces, and they're asking, what does the ideal 2026 look like for our families and team? All right, so the next thing I'd love you to consider is using your timetable to drive revenue and retention. So here's where it gets exciting. Your timetable can be designed to increase profit and student loyalty. Things like prime time slots. So these are your highest value pieces of real estate, if you want to look at it like this. So make sure that they're used for in-demand programs that will attract and retain. The next thing I want you to consider is stacking your programs or your genres together, the ages together. So if you run an extension or a comp program, can you slot it in before or after the recreational classes? because then families are more likely to add it on. And then, as usual, the upselling opportunities. So add-on classes like drama or cheer or conditioning, even private lessons. If these can be placed in a way that feels seamless, then it's less likely to feel like a hassle for a parent who wants their child to do more. So when you look at your timetable as a business tool, you'll stop filling it with whatever fits and start designing it for maximum impact. And I really love it. I look at it like it's a jigsaw puzzle and putting it all together. It's really fun. Okay, so let's moving on to the mistakes to avoid. Okay, let's call out some of the common things that I see studio owners falling into. The first thing would be overfilling. So just because there's an empty space on the calendar doesn't mean you should run a class. Sometimes leaving space for growth is actually the better move. Next one is short-term fixes. So creating a timetable that works only for next year without considering pathways will lead to higher drop-offs later. So I want you to think about the long-term effects. And once you've sorted out your timetable and you've fixed all these small things that we've talked about, we tweak it, there shouldn't be too many changes. Now, even with not many changes, it still can take a while. I absolutely get that. But there shouldn't be too many changes once you've got all these bits put together. And then the next thing is teacher-centered instead of family-centered. Okay, so this is a really interesting point because I see it from both sides. If you were asking me the question, would you create your timetable around your teachers or around your students? My response would be to build your timetable around your students. However, I do also know and appreciate there may be certain teachers that are specialized that you need who can only come on certain days. You might have teachers who resonate really well with particular students that you want them on, and you know that they can only make it on a Wednesday and a Friday. So there may be the case where you have to mix up a little bit. But if you are asking me, I would say don't build your timetable around your teachers. And I have been absolutely burned by this because I created a whole timetable one year around one particular teacher who was taking most of the classes and then she ended up leaving. And so I had to fill her spot, which I did. And, but it is just annoying. Your team's needs definitely matter, but if families can't make the timetable work or it's not convenient for them, then you will ultimately lose enrolments. So it won't matter if you've got the teacher because you won't have the kids. If it's, say, for example, it's too late in the night because they can't get there, it's later in the week and they're younger and their kids are generally really tired by the end of the week, so the younger kids. So if you put a class on a Thursday evening, it might be just too late and a family might decide that that's not right for their student, their child. All right. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with studio owners who were frustrated about losing their students, only to discover that it wasn't the program or the teaching, it's just simply that the timetable didn't fit into their family life. And of course, we're never going to be able to keep everyone happy. You're never going to be able to build something where everyone can say, yes, I can do that. Or they might, definitely choose you over another activity. We can't guarantee that. All you can do is do your best to build it around by listening to what is working. Have a look at your numbers, ask the question. Even if you need to send out some surveys to ask, what's working, what's convenient, I really suggest that you do that as well. All right. Next point is setting up for long-term success. So how do you design a timetable that not only works for 2026, but sets your studio up for long-term success? Okay, like I mentioned before, if you can set your timetable up and not have it change too much, then that is the first way to set it up for that long-term success. And this gets really intricate, and I will start to go into more detail over the next couple of weeks about the exact way to do this. But things like, if you've got families that are settled on particular days, is there actually a way to keep their kids coming on those same days, but put them up a level. So you're changing the levels on the days as opposed to moving the children to different days. That is just one thing to consider. The next thing is to really map out the students' pathways. So, whether it's preschool to recreational, recreation to extension, extension to senior, where does each student go? And does your timetable make that pathway easy? And also visually easy for the parents as well, so they can see, oh, okay, this is where they start, then they're going to move to here, then they're going to move to here. The next thing is having anchor points. So having consistent time slots that stay the same year after year. Like I just mentioned, and I know this is not going to be possible all the time, and it may not work for you, but it is definitely something to consider because it just builds those habits for families and the students, and it also will give stability for your business as well. And then the next thing is aligning with your personal and business goals. So this is another big point as well. You have to really consider what it is that you want. How often do you want to be at the studio? What classes are you teaching, if you're teaching at all? Have a think about, because, and also you need to, if you've got children of your own or dependents of your own, or maybe you're looking or caring for a parent or something like that, you need to work out also what's going to work for you. So if you don't want to be at the studio 6 nights a week, then don't design a timetable that puts you there. If your goal is higher profit, then prioritize the programs that will deliver that. All right, now this is where your timetable stops being just about the classes and becomes that tool for designing the studio and the life that you want. Okay, that's it in a nutshell, 17 minutes in. Now, for your next step. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, it makes sense, but I'm not sure where to start, here's the good news. I am going to run a free 2026 studio timetable power hour in a couple of weeks. And then in this session, we're going to build your timetable together. I'm going to help you break down ways to look at your timetable and be able to put everything in place that can start your 2026 studio planning. So the idea of this is it'll be over lunchtime, so you can grab a sandwich and a coffee, sit down, and within the hour, I want you to walk away with clarity of your next steps. I want you to walk away with confidence and then a blueprint that you can use to then shape the rest of your year. Because once the timetable's done, that will then build the marketing, the enrollments, your finances, like everything. Now, it isn't a cookie cutter approach. It's about what works for your studio and your families and your goals. And so I would love to invite you to just join me for that hour. As I said, it's in a couple of weeks. It'll be a lunchtime. And if you are really ready to get your head around the 2026 planning and start thinking in a smarter way, then be sure to grab a spot. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes, or you can send me a DM on Instagram and I can just send you the link and you just register just so you have the link for the call. And yeah, you turn up, you'll need a copy of your current timetable, pen and paper or Post-it notes, if you like using Post-it notes, however it is. And I'll step you through the process that I go through when I sit down with studio owners and work out the best way to build their timetables. All right, so as I said, the link will be in the show notes, but also if you want to register, and there is a cutoff. So if you do want to be part of this, make sure you do let me know. Just send me a DM just saying timetable and I will send you the link. All right, your timetable isn't just a list of classes. It really is the anchor for everything else in your studio planning. And if you start here, then 2026 won't just be another year of reacting and scrambling. It will be a year where you can lead with clarity and build with intention and give your families and team a future that they can rely on. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you have got a lot out of this. You can probably hear it in my voice. Timetabling gets me excited. So remember, planning doesn't have to feel overwhelming. You just need to start in the right place. All right, everyone, I hope you have a really great week, and I look forward to be back in your ears next Thursday. Thanks for tuning in to the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other studio owners who would love it too. And let's keep the conversation going. Follow me on Instagram at Jen Dalton for more tips, insights, and behind-the-scenes moments to help you simplify and scale your studio. Until next time, keep dreaming big and taking action. I'll see you back here soon.